So hopefully we can finish it off today. Let me share the screen. Right, I'll open. Okay, yeah, Muscat Hotel, my one. We learned how to measure the reinforcement, correct? Right, so I'm not going to go back. Yes, so this is the first exercise we have been doing. Uh, this was the revisioning part which we did, and then these were the original quantities, if you can remember, right? Yeah. Okay. So I would like to open this project or building rather, where we had the revisioning, because I want to explain something very important. Uh, this could be the, let's say, most important thing that you will ever see in this CostX, where you can introduce your own equations, right? So that's why I've been keep on telling that there are some important functions that I will teach you towards the end of the sessions, right? Um, I have I have taught you in a certain way, right? How to do. I have taught you simple thing first, right? Counting, and then of course taking the areas and calculating in 2D, and then uh, there are certain easy methods. If you can remember, when we prepare the workbook of this measurement, so we did certain, let's say, certain manual calculation, I must say. You go to workbook, let me go to the workbook, yeah, here. And if you go to substructure, you double click and then go to, let's say, concrete. Yeah, foundation. Right here, all the foundations we have got automatically. But if you go to like formwork, right, we used our common sense, if you can remember, right? Uh, yeah, waterproofing. Let's say we had done some deductions, if you can remember. So those are done manually, correct? So we derived certain quantities, but in the process we have also used some manual adjustments, I should say, uh, especially when we prepare the quantities for the waterproofing and maybe formwork, right? Formwork maybe especially bituminous, when we prepare the bituminous paint quantities. So we use formwork quantities plus some other quantities as well. So bit of a mixture here, automatic plus some manual calculation or manual adjustment as well. I hope you can remember. Let me turn on the video. Right. So, and if you can remember, when we prepare the substructure concrete, especially plinth beam or tie beam, I said, okay. When we prepare the tie beam, we measured in two ways. One is by measuring the linear meter. The other one is we measure the area of the tie beam, and then the depth was given. Correct? Right. Now, when we prepare the, or when we calculate the quantities for the bituminous paint, what happened? We had to do some manual adjustments because we have to take both sides of the plinth beam or tie beam, right? And then on top of the, and we had to add the top of the tie beam because bottom, we didn't add any bituminous paint because there was no PCC. That's how we have considered, if you can remember. Right, let me open Excel sheet just to give you an understanding. Yeah, hope you can remember this tie beam here, correct? Yeah, tie beam was 300 by 500, but we didn't do any, we didn't consider any PCC underneath the tie beam. Normally, you will have a PCC, but here we have not considered. And then, therefore, we have not considered any PCC, sorry, any bituminous paint underneath the pin beam or tie beam. Correct? We have taken only the two sides and the top when we calculate uh, the tie beam quantities. So let's take again the BOQ and bituminous paint and go to, yeah. And when we calculate the type, okay, you can see here, tie beams. Sides, we have taken two sides because we knew the total length was 63.2. And the top also we have taken, considered separately. So we have done this part manually, if you can remember. But is there any way we can do it automatically? So that is the question. That is the question. Because when we take this linear meter method or line method or length method or area method, you don't get any three sides, correct? If you drag and drop, you don't have anything like, volume you have, that is concrete, right? Count you have the width if you want, you have the height if you want, you have the total length, you have the area of the plinth beam, I mean the plan area, right? Total length into the width of the tie beam. And wall area is, of course, the total area, so all four area. So none of the quantities are matching with the, or none of the parameters are matching with the bituminous paint on the tie beam. Because we are thinking about let's see, we are thinking about two sides and the top, but we don't get any parameters equivalent to that here, right? No count, width, height, length. So we can't take any of these parameters to calculate the bituminous paint on the tie beam because we are considering three sides. So I did it intentionally at the very beginning because I wanted to teach you this. Now, how can we get these quantities automatic when we measure the length of the tie beam? So that is what we are going to learn today. So in other words, we are going to introduce some equations, right? So that when we drag and drop, that parameter also is here, right? I have not taught you before. So this is called extended properties. This is called extended properties. So we are going to introduce some parameters which are not in there by default. So in other words, we can introduce some parameters on our own. And then we can use those parameters when we start the measuring. Right. Now when you plan your measurements, now you can introduce those kind of equation at the very beginning, remember. Or at the time of you measure, right, you can measure you can introduce some of the parameters so that it will be useful later. So that's how you should be planning your measurements. I didn't want to tell you those things at the very beginning because you get confused. Now you have a good understanding about what CostX is and then the capabilities and then properties. Now you can absorb this, and this is what we call as extended properties. In other words, you can introduce some parameters here. So let's see how we can do that. Now I want to find out, let's say let's say I want to introduce a parameter here. When I measure the length of the tie beam, when I measure the length of the tie beam, I need to be able to measure the what you call as bituminous paint area. Let's say we know we have not considered the bottom, but two sides and the top. Okay, how can you do that at the very beginning? When we measure the tie beam, I should be able to get the bituminous area also. For this, you don't need this because you can use a wall area. For example, for a foundation, you have a parameter there to match the bituminous paint area, which is equivalent to the formwork area. So we have used the wall area. So that is fine. But this one is not wall area, not cross-sectional area, not volume. Nothing is working with this. So you have to do two sides of length and also the top to get the bituminous paint area. So how do you introduce a parameter? Okay, this is how you do that. Remember, this is very important. Now you go to dimensions, okay, and the length mode. Okay, let's go to, yeah. Okay, this is your, so I want you to come to this project or building, okay, and I want you to open this file now of building, okay, with revision 1. But you have there, you have done the tie beam concrete calculation in two different ways. One is length mode, and then we also did the area method, right? Area and also length mode, because length mode, it was very quick, if you can remember. It was very quick, right? Now, right. Now, uh, right. You can see the length mode here, right? Now, I want to introduce something new. How do you do that? You need to double click on this now. You need to double click. If you want to make a note, you make a note called extended properties. How to introduce extended properties. Okay. So we were working on this, if you can remember, right? When we first introduce a dimension group, we give the name, the folder, and the measurement type. If you want to measure the length, you give the length. But if you want to get the output or output display in volume, so we select volume. Then you have to give the other parameters, width and the height you have to give. How the CostX will know, especially in 2D, what is the size of the beam. Therefore, you have to do that. And then we introduce something called offset and all to generate 3D view. And then you can give your colors and all. That is what we did. But now we are going to introduce something called custom quantities. Now you can see here, custom quantities. That is where you introduce your own parameters to that drop down menu. Right? Can you remember when you drag certain dimension group to certain dimension groups to the workbook, it will ask you, okay, which parameter you want to drag and drop, right? So what you are going to do is you are going to introduce new thing here called through custom quantities, right? You have to select the custom quantities tab now and click insert or plus. Now you can see when as soon as you click insert, you will have copy delete also coming in. Okay, let me close this one again and do it again. Okay, you double click on this length mode and go to the custom quantities, and you can see these are deactivated at the moment, copy and delete, but you have a plus sign here and you have update cancel and you are in the custom quantities tab. You click on this and you introduce something called, let's say, tie beam waterproofing. Okay, you are just introducing something called tie beam waterproofing. Right? Can you do as well? Can you follow me? So you just introduce something called tie beam waterproofing. Okay, what you did was you just click on this and you have this and you just type what you have. That's it. I'm going to show you something now, something very interesting now. So as soon as I introduce this, you can see here, go back to properties, right? And then default display. Now you can see here, tie beam waterproofing appears here, which wasn't there earlier. So you are introducing a parameter that you can measure and later you can drag and drop directly rather than doing any manual calculation through the custom quantities. So you introduce something called tie beam waterproofing, but the problem is CostX does not know what tie beam waterproofing calculation is, but it will show you on the drop down menu here, the measurement, the default display. So you can bring this default display or tie beam waterproofing to default display, which is very interesting, right? So when you measure the length, you can now select tie beam waterproofing if you want, right? So we'll do that later. Now I have introduced this anyway and say update. Okay. Now you don't have to leave it now, for example. Now you have to introduce an equation for this because when you measure the length, CostX should be able to calculate the waterproofing for the tie beam, two sides and the top. For that, you need to introduce an equation. Just introducing this tie beam waterproofing is not enough. So that's what we are going to do now. Right now, you can keep on, adding plus plus, or if you think, you don't want that, you can delete it and then you can make a copy if you want. Right. So that is those functions are available here. And also unit of measurements, you can see here. Right. Now, I'm going to measure dimensions. You go to measure dimension, now you can see all these equations that you have seen here for automatic calculation of the parameters. Also for all the parameters behind the screen, there are equations. And we have not defined it. CostX has already defined it. So area is length into width. Wall area is length into height. Correct? In this one. And then volume is area into height. So all these equations have been introduced, not by us, CostX. Now you have introduced something called tie beam waterproofing. Now we can also introduce an equation for this tie beam waterproofing. So that is the trick. So this is most important part of CostX. You will be very efficient if you know this part. right? You don't have to do all the calculation manually later on, especially things like waterproofing. When you calculate, you are deriving the quantities from the foundation, sorry, from the formwork and other quantities you are using to get your bituminous area. So you don't have to do that now. You can introduce certain equation so that it will appear in the properties. So that tie beam waterproofing or any other waterproofing can be also done very easily. Right. So I go one step back now. Right. I just go one step back. Now what I did, you need to follow me now, right? You just click on this tie beam length mode, double click and go to custom quantities and and add, that means click on plus sign and say tie beam waterproofing. Okay. And if you update only, it will stay. Otherwise, so let us update. Okay, fine. And now you double check. And you can see even here, the tie beam waterproofing is there. But the problem is, we have not defined what it is. The calculation was not given. Right. So we have just, you can see here, we have just introduced something called tie beam waterproofing. Then if you want to introduce the equation, you have to go to measured dimension and see tie beam waterproofing is here now. Now let us give an equation. You are not going to type anything here. You are not going to type anything here. Right. So what you are going to do is basically you are going to click on these three dots. We use this method when we introduce an equation for reinforcement steel last week, not last week, the before. Correct? So if you want to introduce an equation, this is the interface. So you have now introduced high beam waterproofing and double click on this three dots. And you will get into a kind of an interface where you can introduce equations. Right. So can you come to this level before I proceed? Can you introduce a parameter called tie beam waterproofing through custom quantities, right? And without even putting updates, you can go to here and give an equation now. To give the equation, you need to double click on these three dots. Now you are ready to do the equation. Okay, how the equation will work? It has to be length, correct? You have to double click on this length into two eyes, correct? Because two sides. Now you need to remember this now. Length into two sides, correct? 2 into height into length, in other words. Okay, let's get that correct. So length into 2, correct? Into height. Into height. Double click. Now you can see length into 2 into height. That is two sides plus the top. Top again, length into width, isn't it? Length into width. Now close and update. Now you have given the equation. Now you have given the equation. Now double click on this. Right now, when you see the drop down arrow here, you can see tie beam waterproofing. Okay. And for that tie beam waterproofing, you have given an equation also. Right. Length into height into 2 plus length into, not weight. Sorry. It's not length into weight. It is length into width. Length into width. That's the top part here. Length into width is 300. Height is 500. So you don't need to give 500 or parameters. I mean, you don't have to put the numbers here. It's like you are giving an Excel equation, right? Length is given as length because it will take the length as a parameter, right? Height you can give 0.5, but you don't do that because height will be captured by your CostX automatically, and the length and the width. So all this can be captured by CostX. Therefore, you don't give actual figures here, but here multiplied by 2, that has to be there. Now, are you getting me? Right, length into 2 into height plus length into width. Now let's see whether we are getting the same equation now. Right, let's say update. Now, okay. Now let's say we have to prepare the workbook now. Right, earlier we have done manually. Now you see what is the total value? 63 plus 19 is 82, right? 82 square meters of bituminous paint on the tie beam. So let's see whether we are getting the same thing from here now. Now you drag and drop here, come to your workbook and drag and drop. Instead of volume, now you select tie beam waterproofing, right? And say tie beam waterproofing update. Oh, sorry, it's not the right place. It's not the right place. It has to be here. And tie beam waterproofing. I selected the tie beam waterproofing and say update. You can see same 82 meters, square meters I'm getting without doing any manual calculation here. Like, so we did the adjustment last time when we prepared the bituminous paint by using some manual calculation, which is not ideal. Because when you do revisioning, with some of the manual calculation may not be updated. So that is why we don't recommend any manual calculation as much as possible, because when you do the revisioning and then say update the quantities, that may not happen. Therefore, it's always better to link all these parameters from the CostX itself. Understand? Let's say your plinth beam width has been changed or plinth beam height has been changed. So in this manual calculation, then you have to come and change these figures in the revision. But here you don't have to. All the changes automatically will be taken. Right, now can you get that 82.16 from this extended properties? So likewise, you can introduce so many things. For example, ducting, as I said. So when you measure the ducting, air conditioning, you don't get, so let us do that exercise also. Let's take one by one. So let us complete this one first. And I want everyone to get this 82.2 and drop me a message saying that you have done in the chat box. Right. Can you drop me a message, please? Okay, how the calculation will happen? Let me show you the calculation again. Double click on this. Go to measured dimensions and you can see length into 2 into height plus length into width. And this is how the calculation or the equation should look like. You can see the field here is tie beam waterproofing and the equation is given here. So once you give the equation and say close, but you need to update as well. You need to update. Otherwise, the equation will not be applicable to this. And when you finish it, you see the equation here. And you need to update it. You need to update and then you drag and drop to the workbook. You drag and drop, then you will see this parameter also appearing here. Tie beam waterproofing. Are we done? No response today? Sushan? Siva? Susit? Balamayuran? Have you done that? Can you drop a small message? Aruna, are you getting it? No one is responding. Susit, are you done?
Yes, I did. Small error came. Wait, I think
Error.
initial setup in the dimension group. It
Okay. Right. Can I move to the next one? Right. I'll move to the next one. Right. So I'll delete this. Okay, now. So I'll delete this one perhaps.
okay.
Okay. Because I get this now. And now remember, now, yes, we learned this one at the very last extended properties. But if you know the extended properties at the very beginning, right? You can plan your waterproofing when you measure your what do you call tie beam. You also can introduce your waterproofing quantities then and there. Then when you drag and drop, that parameter also will be appeared in the drop down menu, and so that you can select. So you can plan accordingly. If you can introduce certain equation based on the element that you are measuring, knowing that that parameter will be helpful in measuring something else. Right. Now let's take another example. Uh, let's say we had some footings, if you can remember, greater than 700 millimeter. So let's take that drawing. Yeah, that is the foundation layout. Then we had PCC details where we had the the footing schedule. You can see here. Let's say now, for example, we have F1. The thickness is 500. You can see here. And then F2 you have 600, and then you have F3, let's say 700, F4 500, F5 500, and so on. Let's assume a situation in the specification says you have to use grade 35A concrete, let's say chill concrete, because the temperature is high when the depth is high. In the specification, let's say it is specified that anything more than 700 to be concreted with grade 35A concrete, which is the chill concrete. Let's say you have to put ice because of the, I mean, as part of the temperature control, you have to put ice. So they have introduced something called grade 35A instead of 35 for the footings greater than 700. Let's say, let's take a scenario. Okay. Okay, let's say anything greater than 700 or equal, you have to use chill water for the concreting. So I'm introducing a new uh, grade for concrete called 35A. Now, how do you measure 35A when we measure the concrete itself? So that is another application if you want to do that. Now, for example, F1, we know from this F1 is 500. So that does not come under that category. F2 does not come under that category, but F3 will come because it is exactly 700. So therefore you have to use grade 75A, sorry, grade 35A instead of 35. So how do you introduce? Let us go to the workbook first. Okay, let us go to the workbook first, and you have to introduce something called grade 35A. So let us do that. Okay, we are in the foundation. Okay, we are in foundation now. 35. You have to introduce a 35A. Sorry. And you have to introduce, let's say, 35A here. Again for the foundation, isn't it? Again the foundation. Right. So you just insert, sorry. So you just inserted another quantity called 35A. So can you do that quick? And you are introducing 35A, which is, let's say, chill water concrete. And you are going to calculate that chill water concrete using these extended properties without thinking about the depth. Let's say you have already measured this now, 325 altogether. Now you are going to get the chill water quantities or chill concrete, which is in the foundation more than 700 millimeter deep. 700 O more than 700 millimeter deep. So how do you introduce this now? Now let's go to each one, because assuming, let's say, don't think about the height now. Let's say we are giving automatic separation. So what you do is I start with F1 even though it is lesser than 700. We know F1 is 500, but still I use this equation. So follow me. You just do it with me now. Go to F1. Right, having introduced this one in the BOQ, chill water or temperature control concrete as 35A for the foundations, which are 700 millimeter or above, right? I know we have taken the full quantity here, right? That's okay. We'll see how we can do the adjustments. And now we have to do foundations more than 700 or above. And we are going to give, or we are going to introduce a new parameter like what we did. Right. Now you go to drawings or dimensions. Okay. Go there, double click. Now you are going to introduce custom quantity. We are going to introduce custom quantity called, what do you call it? So let's say temperature control or 35A if you want. 35A, or you can say temperature control. Temperature control concrete. Right. You are just introducing a parameter and say, and yeah, so temperature control concrete, and then you can, if you want, you can update, or you can just continue to the dimension, because you need to give now. It's not 5A, sorry, it's not 30. It's okay. There's a visibility issue. Right? It shows as 5A here, for some reason, because of the characters, I think. Mm, let's say. 35 temperature control concrete, and you are going to give the equation now. So how the equation will work now? Now we have to give a bit of logic here. We have to say, we have to give if function, isn't it? We have to give if function if the height, right? If the height, if the height is greater than or equal, greater than, I'm trying to get my greater than here. I have something in my keyboard. Okay, got it. And greater than or equal. Okay. If the height of the footing, there's an if function. If the height of the footing is greater than 700, right? 700 or 0.7 because we have giving in meters here. Then put the volume. Then put the volume. Otherwise, zero. Okay, now you have to digest the equation. It's like Excel. If the height is, similar to Excel. If the height is greater than 0.7, greater than equal 0.7, put the volume or otherwise zero. So in this case, we should be getting zero because the height is lesser than 0.7 for the F1. Correct? So can you introduce this equation? If, open a bracket, height, you have to select the height from here, double clicking, is greater than or equal 0.7, comma, put the volume. If not zero, that means if it is lesser than 0.7, 700 millimeter, put zero because we are going to capture anything more than 700 or equal to 700. If not zero, right? Can you use this equation? It is almost like if condition in the Excel, nothing much. Right. Done. So what you need to do is you have to double click on this one and then go to custom and introduce 35 amp grade 35A temperature control concrete, right? And then go to the other tab, the measured quantities, the last tab, and introduce this equation and then close. Measured dimensions. Now you can see 35 temperature concrete. There's an equation here. If the height is greater than 0.7, put the volume, otherwise zero. Because we are going to measure 35A now. And say update. Correct? Right. Now I'm going to show you something. Now go to workbook. Right? Go to workbook. Go to foundation. Quantity. Right? I'm going to drag and drop here to capture 35A. So what should be your quantity? Now you have to select 35A temperature concrete and say update. Since we have not used any zoning for the substructure, whether you can click here or not, it doesn't matter. You just update and you see you should get the zero. Why? For grade 35A, F1 is not coming. F1 is 500 only. So F1 should not be 35A. Therefore, you should be getting only zero. That is correct. Now let us apply this equation to all the other dimension groups. Right? Let us apply this one to all other dimensions. Now, when you do for the first time, you don't have to do that because you created this one and you can take a copy to F2 and you change only uh, the height, correct? you change only the height. But now, since you are doing backward, you have to again introduce 35A here because you have introduced that 35A in the F1, correct? And you have to introduce the equation also again. But what you need to do when you first do the concreting, you can introduce that parameter and then take a copy to F2, F3, F4, and so on. So you don't have to redo it again. Right? So that is why the your knowledge in extended properties are very, very important because you can plan your measurements accordingly from the beginning. Yes, now you learn at the end. Now you can apply this knowledge upfront at the very beginning, right? When you do a real project. Now, since I have to do it now, I will introduce again F2 custom property. Can you quickly do that and insert and say 35A? I'll just put only 35A, that's all, okay? 35A concrete, and go there and you can see 35A and then what I will do, I'll take a copy of this, okay? See how it works, okay? And close. And update. Right. So I'll do the same thing with F3 as well. But F2 also 600. You don't get that. Okay. So 700. Next one we should be getting F3. Let's see. Now you go to workbook and you can drop F2 also. And you select 35A here and you don't see 0 again. You don't see any quantity there. So you do the same thing for F3. So let us take a copy of this equation. Now you apply to, so just follow me. We don't have time otherwise. 35A and go there and click here and paste it here. You're done and update. Don't forget to update, okay? Right now you go to workbook. I'm doing one by one. You don't have to necessarily do that way. Otherwise you can drag and drop the entire thing. But I'm doing one by one now. F3. I'm using 35A here and I should be getting a quantity. Because that F3 is exactly 700. So that quantity should be captured as 35A. Now you can see. That's why you are getting this. Now F4. F4 is 500, you don't get. F6, F4, F5, you don't get. F6, you should be getting. F8, 6, 7, 8, all three you should be getting. So let us, irrespective of the thickness, we'll do that now. F4. To get that equation copied. You don't have to do this one for the first time when you do. You create F1 and then take a copy. But here we are doing the other way. Close and update. Okay, I'll do first everything and then copy. I'll be doing it for F5 as well. Right. Now F6. You can take from here also if you want. F6, you introduce first 35A. Close and update. F6, let's say F7. Take a copy of this first. F7. Custom quantity, introduce 35A first. And go here and apply the equation. Close, update. Done. F8, last one. So take the equation from here. So this is very easy when you do the first time. So it's only one equation you need to apply and then take a copy for F2, F3 and so on. Now we are doing the other way. Certify. All right, so all done. Now what I will do, go to the workbook. Now I have done F1, F2, F3. I'll select everything, F4, F5, F6, F8, everything, and drag and drop. And I'll select 35A here and say OK. Now you can see F6, F7, F8 only I'm getting because of that equation. Now if you go to the workbook here, you get only 275. But earlier you have measured 325 here. So what you should be doing there? You should be deducting this 274 from this 325. So what you can do is basically you go to this, right, and then you select all of them. So 35A, you have to deduct and take 35A from here. Hold on. Yeah, you have to do one by one. F1, let's try everything. Right, there. Right, you select And what you need to do is you have to introduce -1 because it's a deduction, right? And you can say deduct 35A. Right? So you should be getting your quantities now. Automatic. Foundation 51, that is 35, and 35A is 274. Since I have to do the other way around. Otherwise, you don't have to deduct because you have measured the entire thing from the beginning. That's why you have all these quantities now. Now you don't have these quantities anyway. Right? Since we have measured this way, firstly the total quantity, and then secondly you have measured the 35A. So I had to do a small deduction here. You have to deduct 35A separately from 35, I mean the total concrete quantity to get 35. You don't have to do that when you plan your measurements from the beginning. You can measure 35A separately and 35 separately. You understand? And this is how you should be doing it. That is another application of extended properties. Right? Can we quickly do that? You don't have to do for all 8. You select maybe F1 and maybe another one like F6 and see the calculation. The calculation should be like this. When you drag and drop into your workbook under 35A. If you take time to do all 8, at least try and do maybe 2 or 3 footings and drag and drop. You should be getting 35A separately. Interesting, isn't it? Right. Now you can understand very easily. Right. So I'll move on. Right. Any questions? I hope you have followed my equation here. I'll show you once more. Just double click on this and this is the equation. Okay. I hope you have got it. If you want to see the figures, there should be a figure for F3 because F3 is exactly 700 and F6, as far as I can remember, it's 900. So it should come as F35, grade 35A and F7 and F8 as well. Others will come as 0 because they are not 35A. So we didn't think, so we have assigned an equation. Right. There will be another scenario. Okay. If you want to measure, let's say, now, for example, in this case, you hardly see in normal, you all know that you don't get this, what you call PCC line drawn on AutoCAD normally. You will see only the foundation line. For more clarity, you will see only single line, right, as foundation. Normally, you don't see the second line, which is the PCC line from the plan. Now, since you had the PCC line, it was very easy to measure the area and then multiplied by 0.1 because PCC was 0.1, correct? So we measured the area and we wanted the volume, but then introduce the thickness or the height. That's what we did. But luckily we had this line drawn on the AutoCAD, but you don't normally do that. Right now, in that situation, how do you calculate the PCC? Assuming that this line is not drawn. This line is not drawn, not always. There's so many lines you have to draw otherwise. Engineers will not show you this line. So how do you measure the PCC now? It is not easy now. You have only the inner line. You have the inner line. How do you do that? Now we have to again assign an equation, or we have to use extended properties to calculate the PCC when you measure the footings, right? When you measure the footing area, we can introduce an equation to measure the PCC also. That's how you exactly do when you measure in uh, Excel, isn't it? Let's say F3 is let's say 2 by 1, so 2 meter, another 100 meter this side, another 100 meter this side, and here 3, another 100 meter this side, and this side you add 3.1 again, and then you get the area and the thickness multiplied by thickness. You get the PCC area. So you can do similar thing here also. When you measure the footing area, you should be able to get the PCC in that footing. You understand that? How do you introduce? Let me go to this. This is the figure I have drawn for you to understand. Now, footing, now you are going to measure the footings, okay? Because there's no line for the PCC, assume. And you are going to introduce an equation now through the extended properties. Now, the green color one is your footing, and this is your entire PCC area because 100 millimeter line right around, and this is your plinth beam. So for the moment, I'll just forget about the plinth beam or tie beam. I'll put this way. Okay, actually this tie beam is connected to footing. That's okay. It's like this. That's correct. But assuming that PCC is also underneath the tie beam. So I just for the purpose of clarity, I'll keep this away. And your gray area is also PCC, correct? And yellow area also your PCC. So what you are doing is you are going to take the length, and foundation area is, of course, you have to you consider the PCC. In addition to the foundation area or the footing area, you have to add this gray area, all 4 sides, plus these 4 corners, isn't it? 4 corners as PCC. Then you can introduce an equation. When you measure the PCC area, sorry, the footing area, you should be getting the PCC area automatically. But all because of this drawing, all because of this drawing. If it is only 100 millimeter, then you have to use 100 millimeter all 4 corners or edges. If it is only 500, sorry, 50 millimeter, then you have to change your equation accordingly. So you need to refer to your standard details properly in order to come up with the proper equation. Correct? Otherwise, you will make a mistake. I'm not saying this equation is common for any time. No, it depends on the standard detail. According to the standard details that we have worked on, now I'm saying this is 100 millimeter, this is 100 millimeter. Even the thickness is 100 millimeter. And all 4 sides are 100 millimeter. And all 4 corners are also 100 millimeter, 100 millimeter, and thickness also 100 millimeter. So you can add this additional area to the footing area to get the PCC. And you can do it through the extended properties when this line is not drawn on the AutoCAD to measure the area, when we measure the PCC. I hope it's clear. Now we are going to introduce an equation. So let's go to, let's say one footing here, okay? Let's go to one footing F1, where to F1? Okay, this one here, right? So what we are going to introduce is an equation to get the PCC directly when this line is not drawn on the AutoCAD or PDF. So what people do is sometimes we draw an offset on the AutoCAD drawing and then mark the PCC and then get the area. That is possible. I'm not saying that is not possible. But let's say you don't have this line and you have to calculate the PCC area from the footing area. And here it is. What you do is you double click on this one, F1, right? And then you have to introduce here custom property as there should have been custom properties here already. 35A, maybe not updated. Okay. Already there should be custom properties because we have done chill water, right? Sorry, chill concrete. Sorry, this is, sorry, this is column. I was in wrong one. Footing. Okay, so double click on this custom property. There should have been 35. That's why I was just wondering. Then I was on the wrong dimension group. Okay, and I have to introduce another one. Right? Earlier we introduced 35A temperature control concrete. Now we are introducing PCC. Right? PCC. When we measure the footing itself, you measure the PCC automatically. Interesting. For some reason, there's no editing here. So you have to just delete and do that. Let's say PCC, 100 million. Anyway, PCC. Right. And then given you can see 100 millimeter PCC here. Then you have to give an equation here. Okay. Equation is little complicated. How? First, area. Because I am measuring the area into 0.1. Right? That is the gray area. Sorry, the green area. Area of the footing into 0.1. So this green area PCC. Now we have to add this length side. Two sides are there, right? And length into two sides, and then width is the 0.1, height also 0.1. So let us give that. Right, plus, can you follow me? Area into this plus length into 2, because two sides, right, into length into 2, point 0.1 into 0.1. Yes, you can see. I'm talking about this side, okay, this part. Length into 0.1, width, and the height is 0.1. But there are two of them. Right, so that is this plus shorter side width into 2 into 0.1 into 0.1. Correct? Now the equation is correct. Now you can see again green area, short area, two long areas, but we have to do these four corners also. So we have to add four corners in plus 4 into 0.1 into 0.1 into 0.1. Small piece is 0.1 into 0.1, but thickness is also 0.1. I think we have pretty much covered everything. Right, so we introduce and say update. Right, now let's see F1 PCC. Okay, go to the workbook now. Go to PCC. I just wanted to show you where's the PCC. Yeah, here. So there we have measured the entire area. Now let's take F1 only. F1 only, okay? And PCC. Update. Now F1 alone is 4.1. This is the total that we have done from the measurements. Right? If you go to PCC measurement, you will see the breakdown of right? This is your breakdown, right? This is your breakdown. You know that. Right. Now, this is F1, only the footing one. So let's see. If you go to F1 dimension, you can find out. Now, this is F4. Now, the problem here, small problem here, F1, we have not given the number of dimension, we have to give the numbers also, right? We had F1, how many numbers? So this is symbol, this is per F1, only one, right? Count. Also, you can give from here. Otherwise, it may not be correct. You have to select the count. You have 5 of them. Now it is 22 cubic meters, right? 4.4. Let's double check. Okay, fine. There has been some mistake. 5 is correct. It's 4.44 is wrong. That means our equation may be not correct. Let's go back. Our equation may be not correct. Let's double check. Area into 0.1 plus length into twice 0.1 into 0.1 plus width into 2.1 into 0.1 plus 4 into 0.1 into 0.1 into 0.1. There's somewhere some mistake. Can someone follow it up? Area to 0.1. Length into 2 into 0.1 into 0.1, width into 2 into 0.1. Yeah, we should be getting some decimal here. But we are getting, when you go to workbook, we are getting 4 point. That cannot be the case. You have 5 of them, and area of this count is already there. Count we have taken already. But we are getting 4.43. Now that could be correct. Just double check. Just go to PCC F1. Very difficult to find out. Go to dimensions. You have to find out F1. Okay, F1 is 0.78. Okay, correct, no? 0.78 into 5. We have how many F1? Yes. We have 0.78 into 5. Let's take a calculation. 0.78 into 5. 0.78 into 5. We are getting 3.9, but I'm getting here about 4.2. That means that there's a slight something wrong with the equation slightly. We need to double check on that. Anyway, you can double check on that, okay? Just there's a small mismatch. There could be some 0.1 somewhere missing, or maybe slight adjustment is needed for the equation. So each one is 0.78 into 5. We should be getting 3.9 something, but I'm getting 4.2 or something. So there should be something here. Just a second on that. Now it is correct. 3.92, 3.9. I think there's a small adjustment to be done in the equation. When you say length, right? When you say length, CostX will take the entire length. You don't have to multiply it again by 2 here. So that is the difference. When you take length, it takes both sides. Width, it takes this way. So that's how it is matching with this 3.92 here. And you can see from here as well, PCC. Yeah, we have 5 numbers of F1. Correct. Yeah. And then we have 5 numbers. And when you go to really PCC breakdown, you get F1 as 0.78. Right. So anyway, slight adjustment for the for the equation is required. You can do some experiment here, okay? How to get the PCC from the foundation dimensions and vice versa, the other way. The formwork, of course, you can get because of the wall area. You have something called wall area. Right. So that is one application. I've taught you now several application how you can apply the extended properties. Right now, I have told you, right, how can we measure the ductwork now. Now, obviously, I don't have to tell you how to introduce an equation for ductwork. So I'll close this now. I'll close this. Go to MEP. Okay. I don't have MEP here. I have to import this. I'll take a backup of this reinforcement and then delete it. Okay. So I'll take a backup. Export reinforcement. Right. Now I need to delete that because I can only accommodate 3 buildings in educational version. That's why. So I'll delete this. Okay. I'll delete this reinforcement because I have taken a backup. Now I import the reinforcement, the MEP one, sorry. You also have to do that. MEP. Right, it's there now. Double click and you can see MEP now. I open. Drawings. We measure lights. Okay. AC. Right now, what we want is basically when we measure the duct, I want the ductwork area. Simple as that. So at the moment I have measured meters, that's all. Understand? I have measured in meters. So altogether 9 meters. Can you open this? Just wanted to show you how to apply extended properties to ductwork. That's all. Right now, you double click on this. Right now, you don't have to measure like 300 by 200 and all these things. But you can just measure GI supplier diffuse duct horizontal, for example. Vertical, you know how to measure. You have to assign the thickness, sorry, the height and the size. But for horizontal, how you give extended properties, you give a custom quantity called, let's say, ductwork, right? And then you can see ductwork here, and then you give the equation. How the equation? Your ductwork would be what we are measuring is length, isn't it? Right. So length. How do you assign the equation? Length plus width, isn't it? No. Length multiplied by length multiplied by 2 times height plus sorry. Oh, can be the other way also. 2 times height plus 2 times width or plus width. Just double check whether it is correct. You have the ductwork length, then multiplied by the perimeter or girth. That is height plus width or width plus height into 2. Correct? Height and width into 2. To complete the rectangle, that's 2 times the height and 2 times the width. And then you have to multiply it by that girth into or from the length. Correct? Right. So close. I hope everyone gets the equation. So it's length into the perimeter of the duct or the girth. Let's say it is 200 by 300 is 200 by 300 into 2. You get the perimeter of the girth of the duct, and then multiplied by the length, you get the surface area. I hope it's clear. And close and update. Right, when you measure when you put into the workbook now, let's say you have done a workbook, an AC, right? Now because remember the length and the width you have already defined. Default width you have to give. Default width is now 0.2, correct? Default height is 0.3. You have to define this to 0.2 and 0.3. Right, update. Yeah. So duct is 0.2 into 0.2. And now go to workbook, go to subtotal. Right, that is what we have done is from 8 whatever kilograms. Now we are going to measure the area. What you do is if you want, sorry, you have to go one more. Yeah. Uh, and what you need is duct area, right? Duct work. You can see 9.18. The area, same area we are getting. And this is the factor, that is per kilograms per cubic square meter. So earlier what we have done is length into the girth of the duct, 0.3 plus 0.2 into 2. So this time we have already introduced an equation through the extended property, and we are getting directly the ductwork surface area. You don't have to do any multiplication from the girth. Earlier we have measured only the length. Now, if you want to introduce the kilograms, you have to use the multiplication, kilograms per cubic meter. You get the same thing. Or there's another way you can do. When you introduce first thing here, if you don't want display here, you can introduce ductwork directly. And you get directly the area here. When you measure the length, you get the area. That is also possible. Otherwise, we can work through the workbook. Right, so that's all as far as extended properties are concerned. We have pretty much covered everything, the application. So it's if you are smart enough, you need to plan your measurements accordingly. And if you have to introduce certain equation at the very beginning, you have to do it. Then only you can capture certain parameters other than the standard parameters given in CostX. The standard parameters are obviously count, length, area. When you measure any of this, others also captured. But if you want to capture something else like ductwork area or the PCC area or maybe uh, like chill concrete, right? And then we did one more. We did yeah, bituminous paint. So those type of uh, parameters also you can introduce at the very beginning of the measurement process, so that these quantities are captured. When you measure anything else, these things are also captured. So you can use it uh, wherever you want to use it. So that is how you have to plan as a good and smart quantity survey. You have to plan your measurements accordingly, right? Rather than you introduce certain things later. Later, when you introduce, it is difficult because as you can see, when I wanted to introduce, uh, let's say, chill water concrete, for example, we have to go back and change the dimension group's properties. If you can do it at the very beginning, and then you take a copy of that and then do the F2 and F3 and so on, then it will be easier rather than changing it later. I hope it's clear. Right. So few things I need to tell you again. Okay, this is how you measure ductwork if you want. You can measure here length itself, or you can select, if you have already introduced ductwork here, you can default display, you can say ductwork and update. And you can see here 9. Correct? Automatically you can. Why this is 9, length also 9, and square meters also 9? Because the perimeter was 1 meter exactly. because 0.2 into 0.2 plus 0.3 is 0.5. 0.5 into 2 is 1 meter exactly. So length also equal to the surface area. If you take a different diameter or different size, like 200 by 200, then you see the difference. I hope it's clear. Right, now I need to show you something else also. I close this and can you try this first? Can you introduce this equation? Can you introduce this equation and measure measure one of the duct, the surface area of GI sheets? Right, I hope it's correct. Right, so I'll close this and go back to the previous one. I need to correct that equation. I forgot one thing to tell you there. If you go to previous one, when we calculate the foundation, the PCC, sorry, from F1, and we have introduced this equation, and this equation is incorrect. The why it is incorrect? When you say this length is in this particular one, F1. So when you say length here, what do you mean by length here? Length is the perimeter in this case, because this is an square meter. It is a square shape. So length is taken as a perimeter here. It's not the exact length of the footing. So that is why. Okay, because we measure the area here, right? And then we want the display, and there also you get length. If it is a linear meter, length is length, of course. If it is a square shape object, the length is a perimeter. Therefore, when you introduce this and this is wrong, width doesn't come into picture, and it's only 4 corners, thus this all. So in other words, when you say length, it is a perimeter. When you say length, it is a perimeter. Therefore, all 4 sides are automatically counted. Length into 0.1. Length means these 4 corners, sorry, 4 sides, gray area. Length is the perimeter, no? In that case. So you have to take 0.1 into 0.1, 4 sides plus the yellow 4 corners. That's why you need to correct this equation here. Area into 0.1 When you say length into 0.1 into 0.1 and then four corners, that's all. Update. Then you get proper. Then you get the correct quantity. Right, we got 3.91, right, earlier. Yeah. You have to correct your equation. Right. So I'll go back to drawing, one of drawing, let's say. Few things you need to understand. Sometimes when you have symmetrical drawings like this, right? Sometimes you can say now you don't have to measure the both. You don't have to measure both sides if the building is symmetrical. So what you can do is you can work one side and then you can set your multiplier as 2. Uh, for example, let's take so when you add this one, for example, right? Let's take uh, let's take this building, okay? A ground floor. I'm going to add this drawing again. I just want to show you one thing. Architectural PDF ground floor, right? Yeah. You take a copy and say rename as multiplied by 2. Okay, I just want to show you something. You can say 2 times. So can you rename this ground floor plan as 2x and we'll add them to the CostX. Drawings and drawings. Oscar Hotel Architectural and AAD 05201 ground floor 2x. Yeah, 2x, leave it like that. And of course, you need to calibrate and all these things. Yes, you know that. It's in inches. Did I do anything? No. Let's say base unit is millimeters. Okay. Yeah. You need to calibrate. Okay. But now, let's say you have a symmetrical building, and here itself, you can see here there's something called drawing multiplier. You can see here. We didn't talk about this before. One thing is, of course, you can use, let's say you have a similar, you have typical flows, and you have to measure one. That's all. You have to measure one, but you have five stories or 3 stories, let's say, of similar block work. So what you are going, or maybe drawings. So what you can do is you can set this multiplier as 3 at the very beginning, and all the quantities you are measuring from this building will be multiplied by 3 automatically. So let's try that out if you want. Let's take one window and see. Let us measure one window and see whether it is multiplied by 3. So this is very important. This multiplier thing is very important. When you first introduce the drawing itself, you have to set this multiplier. If it is a typical flow, you can do that. I think that's the best application of this. If you have 3 similar projects or 3, um, let's say you have 2 typical flows. So what you do is you set the 2 typical flows here. So you set the multiplier as 2 and say update. Okay, done. Now let us measure one from here. Okay, let us measure maybe this building. Sorry, only this 7 masonry superstructure. World type 7. Okay, I just wanted to show you. So we'll measure one number. I think that would be great. So let us measure G11 or G10. I think that is better. So we have to introduce a dimension group called dou. I just measure dou. Okay, it's not okay. Let's put okay G10. Fine, G10. It's a dou. Folder is not concrete. Of course, those. Okay. Measurement type is count. Default display also count. Okay. Now the multiplier. The multiplier you can set here also. You can set this as multiplier 2. That's all. Insert. Right. Now you see what happens when you measure one item here. Let's say take line or point mode. Okay, we'll put a tick here. Right. You just measure as point. Right. Now you know what happens? 4 numbers. Because what we did was we have done twice. First thing we have multiplied by default multiplication, because when we first introduced the drawing, we also multiplied by 2. Therefore, we don't have to do that. We have to do only here default multiply is 1, because we have already introduced that there are two drawings, typical drawings, when we first introduced this. That's why I put 2x. Now, you don't have to change the multiply again here, unless you have similar drawing. Let's say this is also symmetrical, then you can have that multiplier, both sides, because you measure only one side, and that you can take this as 2 here, because you have to use two sides, and then you have two drawings. Then only you will get 4. But here only 1, for example. So I update and you get 2 numbers. So remember, when you measure this one automatically, cost test is taking that you have two similar drawings. So automatically the numbers are given in 2 numbers. But here you have to measure only 1, because it will multiply by 2, since we have already introduced a multiplier here when we first introduce a drawing. So that means there are typical 2 flows. And when we measure one number, it will be automatically multiplied by 2. That's how. So there will be another multiplier in the dimension group itself. So that multiplier can be used when the drawing is symmetrical and you measure only one side. Right? So you need to have good understanding how to use the multiplier there. Right? That is one application. And then there's something called working area. Let's take, okay, can you try this one before we move on to that? Can you try this multiplier thing? Can you introduce the drawing, add drawing, and then this drawing you can add. When you introduce, you have to introduce the multiplier. Yeah. Drawing multiply 2. That means you have typical 2 flows and you are measuring 1. But in that case, you don't have to do it again here. You have to keep your multiply as 1, because you have automatically counted now that there are 2 flows. I hope it's clear. This multiply is within the drawing, okay? This multiply is within the drawing. If you have symmetrical section, you can measure one side and then automatically the quantities will be doubled. That is this multiplier. But when we first introduce the drawing, if you have similar or typical flows, then you can set the multiplier there itself. so that when you measure one flow, your quantity will be multiplied by this many numbers. So that is very important. Right. The other thing is you can also introduce something called working area. If you want to just concentrate on anything, any small area, you can forget about everything else and then you can set your working area. Let's say you have overlapping in 2D measurements, especially when you have a bigger, let's say, flow plan, and then you have sectional flows, sectional plans, right? Sometimes you have overlapping areas. So when you have overlapping areas, of course, you can set the working area. Let's say if you want to concentrate on this area only, you can just concentrate that. And whatever the measurement you are doing will be based on this. That's all. Right, remember. So you can set the working area and then you can start measuring. And then you can reset the working area once you finish your measurements, right? You can reset the um, view or close the menu. Okay, show all, reset working area. Set working area as per file, reset working area, set working area. So if you just want to concentrate on, let's say, a particular bathroom or something, you can just, let's say, let's say we have a particular bathroom, then you can just focus on that. It's easy to measure there, correct? You measure this one and then move on to the next one. So that those are the tricks that you can use, right, when you measure. So setting the working area, right? And finally, so reset, right? Let's say now we have done, okay, can you try this one also? Can you practice this working area thing? It has to be two numbers, right? Only this. Right. So this is the last point. I'll close this. I'll close everything. Right. Now we have this CostX. Mm, let me delete this MEP thing, okay? I'm just going to take a, first of all, I'm going to take a backup of MEP, that is export. You can overwrite, and I'm going to delete it now because I want to make a space for another project, nothing else, okay? So I'm going to delete this MEP because I have a backup now. All this because of educational license, okay? So you should have only two now because I can introduce another one, third one. Now let's say I have measured, I have prepared a BOQ from this, right? We have a proper BOQ, let's say, right? We have prepared proper BOQ or estimate or whatever, you have done it, and you have proper BOQ here, like this. And if you go to, let's say, doors and windows section or concrete section, you have proper BOQ, okay? Let's assume you have a proper BOQ prepared for project A. Now we are going to introduce another project. Now we are going to introduce another project. How? Based on this, because we can abstract all the information, or we can even introduce the workbook, even the dimension groups. Otherwise, what will happen whenever you measure another building, you have to type all these dimension groups, which will take some time, isn't it? That is the beauty of this. Let's say you have done a proper job in Muscat Hotel building, and you have a, let's say, another building called accommodation building in the same project, or another hotel in the same project. So what you can do is you can copy or you can create another project or another building in this case, because we have buildings here. Only one project we have in the educational version. So we are creating a new building based on the Muscat Hotel. So what happens, you get all the dimension groups also along with that. Okay, so let us do that. Right. So let us create a new building now. Okay, call copy. I'm just copy. Okay, you can have another building name, but I just wanted to show you. Um, okay, let's say accommodation building. Okay, or admin building, or hotel 2. We have done hotel 1. Right, project is default anyway. Based on, this is very important. We have never used this before. Now we are creating We are creating a we are creating a building based on another building. So project is default, can't help the educational license. So building is based on Muscat Hotel because we have already measured the Muscat Hotel. So we are creating a new building called Hotel 2 based on Hotel 1, for example. Otherwise, we have to bring all the, also we have to type all the dimension groups from the beginning, right? Then we have to do, I mean, when you take a copy of everything what you have done from the previous project, it will be easier for us to progress very fast. Now you can use drawings. No, you don't need drawings because every project will be different. But use dimension groups, yes. You will need most of the dimension groups. Of course, you need to do bit of adjustments like because sometimes F1 to F8 we have measured in previous hotel. Now you might see up to F10. Then it's a matter of adding another two dimension groups, right? F10, F9 and F10. So minor adjustments will be required and you can use the same BOQ, right? You can see here, use workbook, tick or untick. Want to, when you keep it tick, you will get the workbook also same without the quantities. Without the quantity, use dimension groups, yes or no. Sometimes you say you don't need it, but practically you might need it. But you don't need any drawings, of course, right? Use dimension groups and use rates. You can see here. You can use this rates also. Dimensions means you get all measurements also. You don't need that. You don't need your measurements. You need only measurement dimension groups. Okay. So base unit is meters, all are default, right? And building rates enable, let's say. Okay, building rates also enable. Now, what you can do is now, okay, you are going to create a building called hotel number 2. Project is default education license based on project is default again and Muscat Hotel, what you have already measured, right? Sometimes you can have a hotel number 2 in project 2 here. If it is a commercial license, hotel number 2 in project 2 and another hotel in project 1. So that is possible. And then now create a building. Okay, can you also do that? So what I did was basically I have removed the third one to facilitate uh, a new building. So I have deleted one and then I wanted to introduce a new building. And this is my building property menu. When I first introduce a new building, this is what you see. I'll give it as a hotel 2. Project is default, but based on a previous project. My previous project is Muscat Hotel or whatever the name that you have given earlier. You can say it is revision 2, revision is foundation revision 1, whatever. Or you can say initial. You can use anything or revision based on revision 1 or revision 2 or revision also can be defined here based on initial 1 or revision 1. So I'll keep it as revision 1, okay, because that is the latest dimension groups and everything I have updated. And now I'm going to create it. Yeah, here we go. Now you can see there are no drawings, and my okay, let me show you. At Hotel 2, I have created new building. I don't have any drawings here uploaded because drawings are new anyway, but I have all the dimension groups. But with zero quantity, you can see with zero quantities. Now I can use these ones. I don't have to type again. I can use these dimension groups when I measure the new drawings of the new building, Hotel 2, for example. So don't think that CostX will take time because you have to type all the measurement, sort of dimension groups and everything. Now, when you have populated all these dimension groups, or if you have done a proper job previously, you can import all this information into a new job, in other words, and use those dimensions or dimension groups basically as it is. Obviously, you have to include or you have to add all the drawings again for the measurements, but as far as dimension groups are concerned, you don't need to do that. Right. Do you have any questions? So that is it. That is all about CostX. Of course, we have pretty much covered maybe 70-80% of CostX functions, and all the other functions, of course, you can do some experiment, right? But the basic knowledge that you wanted to get, you have got it, right? And then there will be version updates and so on. Of course, I'll be in touch with. So whenever you have, that's what we are doing with the previous batches also. Now you are in batch 60, and some of the previous batches, I mean individuals are sending some inquiries, and we used to reply to them. So we are still in touch with them. Whenever they have a question or they want to clarify something, they put into the respective, let's say, WhatsApp group, and we used to answer them. So you can always be in touch with us through the same group, same, let's say, WhatsApp chat with your group number. And Tibet will send you a small exercise through an email for you to do. And you need to submit that one in order to get your certificate. Okay? A small exercise that you need to prepare a BOQ from a given set of drawings. So I strongly recommend you to complete that one and submit to Tibet campus so that we know that you can or you have excelled in CostX. And also we are in touch with CostX India, right? And if someone is interested in obtaining licenses, so I can connect you to connect you guys to them. Okay. So we are not, Tibet campus is not an agent, but we can, if some, let's say your company wants to buy some licenses, so I can give you the contact of the right person. So you don't have to, go through the website and all. So they will do the needful very quickly. That help also we can give you. And if you have any further questions, right, when you really practice, and if you come across something, of course, um, you can get back to us. Right. Do you have any questions? So before we say goodbye, and I hope I have given as much as possible, and we have
Excuse,
discussed, and we got good questions also during the discussions. So
excuse.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I forget that part. Did you explain how to export this measurement to Excel sheet? Example BOQ?
no, we can't do that. Uh, it's
Then what
simple.
to do?
No, we can't do that because of because of the lights. It's very simple. You take the workbook
Ah,
here,
ah, ah.
right, and export. Yeah, you can see here.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's a simple thing.
This
So
is
you go to work
uh this is because of the education sheet, right?
education license. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple workbook, and then here we have a workbook exposed to Excel.
Next one I
And there are
forget that.
different formats also sometimes. You can see here.
Is it? Okay, okay, okay. The other
Export to
thing I
workbook to
forget,
tender EXF.
other thing I forget, inches to millimeter.
That I have explained.
That's the last week, before 1 week ago, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, okay. That time I disconnected, I think.
Ah,
Okay,
right.
okay, I
You
will refer. Then
refer to
maybe
the videos, please. Yeah, yeah. It's
that
not a
means
big deal.
it will be 6 months. Video will be remain 6 months, right?
6 months, yes, yes, yes. Videos will be, there has been a small, let's say, breakdown because of the power failure last week. Now you
Yes.
can access the LMS and you can refer back to your previous videos, right? There's no issue.
Okay,
And it
okay.
will, normally it will remain more than 6 weeks, 6 months. But now let's assume that you have a 6 months period of all the videos.
Okay, okay, okay.
So we will not
That,
allow you to download them because of the commercial reasons. And as a lecturer also, I don't allow anyone to download them because these videos can be used for some commercial purposes by people. So therefore, we will not allow videos to be downloaded by anyone, but you can
okay,
view.
okay, okay.
Right. Anyway, keep in touch through the group. If you have any difficulty, not now, maybe after 3 months, still you can drop a message. We will attend to that. Don't worry.
Okay.
Right. So very thank you very much, guys, and you
Excuse
have
me, sir.
asked me good questions also.
Excuse
Yeah,
me, sir.
go on. Yeah.
So, will you proceed on in the assignments? Which kind of formats will I export? No,
No,
in
it's
export.
like yeah, it's a small now. They will send you some drawings, and you have to prepare a BOQ after
Ah,
taking off. So
so we will
your
guide on
your
instruction on project. No.
yes, yes. So
Ah,
what you need to do is basically you have to prepare a small BOQ based on the given drawing, and then you can send us the CostX file, backup file.
yeah. Okay. Ah,
Then I can open the backup file and see.
so will you give how much time period for
No,
submission
no,
of
no.
projects?
There's no time.
Ah,
I mean, you mean the time duration? Time duration, you can do it like within 3 weeks time because you are busy. I mean, I know some of you are working. So there's no hard and fast rule on that, but
yeah. So
earlier
that
the
is the
better.
reasons I asked. I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
busy
yeah.
on this.
No, that's okay. There's no time limit as such, but
Ah,
as quickly as possible. Then we can issue
yeah. So maybe after
the certificate also
maybe
quickly.
3 weeks. No.
Yeah,
Maybe 3 weeks we can
3 weeks.
submit.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Good then. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks all of you
So what
for
is the
joining.
next we have to follow? That means after CostX as a QS,
Mm.
what is the software is good?
Now,
With the
if,
SAP.
the best thing is if you can get hold of the commercial license. But if you
No, no,
if you
after
have
CostX, I mean, if there are
okay.
any SAP is required
Uh,
for us.
no, I mean if you okay, you have so many other software like QB is one,
Oh,
but again, if you are mass, I mean that all depends on how your organization will work. If your
yes.
organization is happy to work with CostX, then you can carry on with CostX. But then, in my thinking is if the CostX is more than enough for you to do like 3D measurements and 2D measurements, that's more than enough. Then you need to be familiar with some of the AI tools. Like there are different versions of software now coming up in the market. For example, okay, ChatGPT everyone knows. Then there's something called uh, Copilot. Those
Ah,
are not measurement software, but for QS's day-to-day life, of course, that will be very helpful, right? Copilot. And there are different software nowadays coming up to even to prepare presentations sometimes or to carry out kind of a QA QC check on your Excel sheets. So everything is now automatic and there will be some assistance from AI tools. So I would recommend you to go through those AI tools and be familiarized with those AI tools. So that will be very helpful to do your things faster. Right nowadays, you don't have to let's say you have to do a presentation tomorrow. Now, earlier it is very difficult because you have to you have to prepare your presentation slides and do modification and all these things. So one day is not enough. Nowadays, you don't need to do that, right? You can ask maybe chat GPT or maybe Copilot to produce your presentation within 5 minutes time, right? But you have to give proper prompt. You have to give brief introduction about what you want basically, and then you have to follow up with some you have to follow up with some good questions to clarify the scope. And within 5-10 minutes, you will prepare your presentation slides. Let's say you have to do a presentation to your management tomorrow based on particular, say, cost value reconciliation or something like that. Now there are software that can really assist you as a professional. So I would recommend that you familiarize with those software nowadays because it will help you to do your office work very fast. As far as measurement is concerned, of course, it's a commercial decision that your company will have to take a decision whether they go on CostX or something like cubic cost or something else. But all of them are pretty much the same in terms of ideas and they have been structured.
yes.
Good guys,
Now I
then thanks.
use
Yeah,
now I use Copilot for BOQ description, the
yeah,
preamble
yeah.
note. For that purpose,
Correct.
I use that one at the
Good,
moment.
good. Yeah, that is very, very handy, very helpful.
Yes, yes.
And if you want to analyze your tender document, there's a package called Cloud. You see here on my screen, CLAUD. Very good. If you want to
Ah,
analyze, let's say, a tender document, a mismatch, you can use this, and it will give you a report.
okay.
So I also work with these three normally ChatGPT, and then Cloud, and then Copilot. Very handy. And there are plenty of software AI tools available on the internet, but these three are very good. Copilot is a Microsoft one, and I'm not sure about this one, but this is very good for analysis of tender documents and contract documents. This will also help in claims.
Okay.
They can produce a report, but you need to be very careful because you have to have a knowledge as a quantity surveyor to understand or to judge whatever the output given by the software are correct or not.
Okay, okay, noted.
Right. Okay then. Thank you very much, and I will see you
Excuse me,
again
sir.
probably in another program like this. And keep in touch
Excuse me, sir.
always. And yeah.
Sir, I have a question not about CostX. So
Hmm.
I have a take instruction. So I
Hmm.
have already I have 2 years experience as a assistant engineer in the Sri Lanka construction industry. So
Okay.
now I am study as a QS. So I closely done Primavera P6. So it will be
Okay.
maybe used for cost manager. No, in I have a plan to go Oman and UAE, Saudi Arabia. So CostTech, sorry, Primavera P6 is maybe used as cost
Now,
manager. No,
now
no.
that is basically will be required for a planning guide.
Plan.
You as a quantity survey, you hardly use what do you call Primavera. For the planning and scheduling, the planning engineers will of course use this software. So this is okay. Having knowledge is always beneficial, but not much as a quantity survey.
I done as for extra knowledge for about the construction
Yeah,
industry
yeah,
in the
yeah. So that is
critical path.
always
Of,
helpful because as a
yeah.
quantity survey, when you are sitting in a in a meeting and they talk about let's say critical path, you know, what do you call earliest starting time, late starting time, and all these technical terms, then it will be beneficial for you to understand what they're talking, planning language. Normally, you don't normally practice Primavera as a quantity survey in 99% of the cases, but it's always
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good. And also, we are looking for two QSs in my organization, Milkris Private Limited, young two QSs for Sri Lankan office. If you are interested, you can. I'm not very experienced guy. I'm looking for like 1 or 2 year experience QSs. Right. If you are interested, just send me your CV to this email. And we are located in Panadura, Sri Lanka. This is for Sri Lankan guys, okay? And this is my email address. Yeah, as a student, yeah, Nimasha, yes, of course, you are just embarking into the industry. So those three AI tools will also help you as a student in the university. So it's not only for the people who are doing this. I know nowadays students are using those AI tools to complete their assignments and all. But what I need you to do is basically you have to understand what is correct and what is right. So you have to have that judgmental knowledge, right? So you don't rely 100% on these AI tools as a student because you need to absorb the the content of the subject, right? So, but still you can get some help. Yeah, quantities, vacancies are in QSs, okay? QS vacancies for junior QSs. All right, I'll draw the curtain then today. And as I said, please stay in touch. You have my mobile in the group, right? So my WhatsApp number. You can individually send me the WhatsApp numbers, or I prefer if you can drop your messages on the group if it is related to CostX. But if you have to contact me personally, you're always welcome. Okay, good. Thank you so much then. I wish you all the very best for the rest of the career. All right, guys. Good night and take care.
Good night. Thank you.